By the beginning of 1991, Angelines Fernandez was one of the central figures of Mexico's most successful show, Chespirito. Despite being in the cast for years, she approached every scene as if it were her first. That inspired her colleagues and entertained the audience. The actress was doing well on the show and had no intention of stopping until her health began to falter. She used to feel unwell before filming a scene, although she managed to give her best. When the situation became unbearable, she went to the doctor and the diagnosis left no room for doubt: she had lung cancer. It was a misfortune that didn't really surprise her, since she had never been able to quit smoking. She underwent the necessary treatments and had the support of Paloma, her daughter and loyal companion, but the pain kept getting worse. With great sadness, she had to retire from Chespirito and acting altogether. Shortly after, the show also ended. During the next 3 years, Angelines suffered irreversible deterioration, although that didn't stop her from fulfilling her last wish. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Popular culture gives us all kinds of child stars, and some of the most memorable ones come from the same show, Chespirito. The creator and main figure was Roberto Gomez Bolaños, but the entire cast was just as remarkable. Especially the actress who brought her to life, Doña Clotilde, an eternal romantic who became famous for an unforgettable nickname. Behind that talented and famous artist, there was a story of survival, courage, and resilience that took her from war conflicts to film sets. What was her role in the Spanish Civil War? How did she create the character that made her a star? What was her relationship like with the actor who played Don Ramon? To what extent? Did her vices lead her to a fatal destiny? Why did the character give rise to controversies? To know the answers to these and other questions, we have to go back to March 25, 1994, the day the Witch of 71 died. Before we begin, I want to ask you if you're watching the new series that came out about the story of Chespirito, and if you are, what do you think about it? Do you think it's good or bad? I want to see your opinion, and I also want to remind you that on this channel we have a lot of videos about the world of Chespirito. We have extensive information and have produced specials about the day Chespirito, also known as Don Ramon, passed away. If you haven't seen them, check the link at the end. They're already uploaded. Let's begin. The life of Angelines Fernandez began far from the spotlight of the stage and even far from Mexico. She was born on July 30, 1924 in Madrid, and it was in her homeland where she discovered her love for acting. As a child, she was already participating in plays. She enjoyed it, and she thought she could make a career on stage. So by the age of 12, she was already a young talent. But her dreams collided with the harshest reality. In 1936, the Spanish Civil War began, dividing the country into two sides. On one side, the nationalist faction, which aimed to overthrow the Republic and establish an authoritarian government. General Francisco Franco led an army made up of military personnel, fascist groups, and much of the church. They even had the support of Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini. But on the other side was the Republican faction, which defended the government. It consisted of Republicans, communists, socialists, anarchists, and most importantly, the working class. Angelines and her family believed in democracy and were ready to fight for it. At 14 years old, she joined the Maquis, a resistance group. Thanks to older comrades, she learned to use weapons and to survive in the mountains in the face of the advance of Francoism. Her youth did not prevent her from standing out among the most daring, and she soon became a true warrior. She was tough, but even in her fighting days, she never lost her love for acting. In the rare moments of relaxation, she and other actor combatants entertained the rest by putting on plays, mostly comedies, to relieve the atmosphere of despair a little. The situation for Angelines and her people worsened in 1939 when the war ended with victory for Franco and his men. Under his rule, Spain was plunged into a dictatorship that lasted until 1975, and it persecuted those who had fought in defense of democracy. These people were considered criminals and mercilessly executed by firing squad. Thus, they became part of the 500,000 people who perished during the conflict. The young woman was hurt by losing her comrades in arms and knew that her own life was in danger. Her family told her she couldn't stay. One more second in Spain, and in 1947 she managed to go into exile with a theater company. But it wasn't enough to go to a neighboring country. She had to cross the Atlantic. There, situations and people were waiting for her that would change her life forever. After leaving Spain, Angelines and the rest of the theater company had a clear destination, Mexico. However, before that, they had to resolve the immigration process, which required them to spend a few months in 1947 in Havana, Cuba. There too, the atmosphere was tense because of the government of Fulgencio Batista. The revolution led by Fidel Castro was still far off. In the same year, Angelines and her companions finally sorted out the paperwork and reached Mexico. The woman was aware that the country had gone through delicate political conflicts, so she didn't know what to expect. However, more optimistic times had begun. Part of the policy of the president at that time, Lázaro Cárdenas, was to open the doors to Spanish refugees. It is estimated that more than 25,000 Spaniards were able to benefit from that initiative. After her initial doubts, Angelines sensed that she could feel safe in her new home. At that moment, another question arose. Could she build a career as an actress there? It was obvious that, as a newcomer, she had to start from scratch, but that didn't scare her. After all, she had kept her passion even in the midst of a war. The company put on plays, and little by little they made a place for themselves in the local artistic community. It goes without saying that the money was never enough, so the young woman had to do other jobs to eat and have a roof over her head. Angelines' dreams of making a living from acting became impossible. Until she met Angel Garraza, a Spanish actor who had also fled from Franco's regime. Already established in the local industry, he wanted to help his fellow countrymen. It didn't take long for him to recognize in the future which of 71, an attractive, charismatic, and talented young woman, Lisa, and he simply became convinced that she had everything necessary to develop a great career. The first step was to get her an audition for a radio drama that was being recorded at the XEW radio station. It was a new medium for Angelines, a new and not at all simple medium. Even though she still had her Castilian accent, she practiced tirelessly until she started to sound like any other Mexican. From then on, she was called for radio dramas. Soon after, Angelines was also invited to perform in plays by other theater companies. Her presence and energy on stage caught the attention of film directors. Both she and any actor in Mexico knew that the best opportunities were on the big screen, since what was known as the golden age of Mexican cinema was developing. Every week, successful movies of different genres premiered, but with a strong national identity. This allowed for the rise of the most powerful film industry in Latin America. In fact, Mexico had a star system that had nothing to envy from Hollywood. Outstanding figures included Emilio El Indio Fernández, María Félix, Pedro Armendáriz, Dolores del Río, Arturo de Córdoba, and Pedro Infante. On the comedy side, no one shone as brightly as Mario Moreno, Cantinflas. Thanks to this famous comedian, Angelines got his most recognized work on the big screen. Although it wasn't easy for her at first, since she had specialized in dramatic roles, she managed to loosen up guided by Cantinflas and by remembering her days performing plays. During the war, when making her companions smile was as important as fighting against the nationalists. In addition to gaining artistic and financial satisfaction thanks to cinema, Angelines met great friends. While filming Corona de Lágrimas in 1968, he met Ramón Valdés, another of the most active actors of the time. They connected right away, bonding over movies, scenes, chats, laughter, and cigarettes. Both were smokers, which would later cause them health problems. They were so close that the press speculated there was a romance between them, something both always denied. Aware of the difficulties of pursuing acting, where unemployment could be common, they agreed to help each other whenever necessary. Despite the recordings and tours, Angelines was able to have a private life. Despite her low profile, she managed to keep her romantic relationships private while starting a family. When she had Paloma, her only daughter, she became her closest companion. In just a few years, Angelines Fernandez became one of the most prominent actresses in the cinema of that region. Although she had friends and colleagues who helped her, she herself had managed to secure steady work and earn respect. Even so, the media and the industry did not consider her to be on the same level as a Dolores del Rio. No one, not even herself, could have foreseen the fame she would attain. By the late 70s, Angelines was a respected figure within the artistic community of Mexico. Few performers combined prestige and popularity like she did. However, the good streak began to stumble. The golden era had ended, and thousands of artists looked for new horizons. Many chose to take refuge in television, more specifically in soap operas that were reaching an international audience as powerful as the films of El Indio Fernández and Cantinflas. Angelines took that path, acting in Teresa, La Familia del Seis, and La Telaraña, among other productions. Angelines found financial stability in the wide range of job opportunities offered by soap operas. But like many in Mexico and around the world, he noticed a phenomenon that kept growing. Chespirito, broadcast by Televisa. It was a comedy show made up of sketches, which led to two independent series, El Chavo del Ocho and El Chapulín Colorado. The main character and creator was Roberto Gómez Bolaños, who had become a celebrity. Angelines enjoyed the show because of its freshness and innocent humor, which was no less clever for it. She also liked seeing her beloved Ramon Valdez in the cast, who played Don Ramon in El Chavo del Ocho, the grumpy neighbor who never paid the rent, although he managed to raise his daughter, Chilindrina. The friends had never lost contact, and in 1973 they had one of their usual get-togethers. Angelines congratulated him for his recognition. Valdez told her that she could also be part of the success since Gómez Bolaños was looking for new actors to add to his cast. She wasn't sure if she would be suitable for that kind of comedy, but he managed to get her an interview with the production team. Without taking anything for granted, Angelines went to an interview with Gómez Bolaños. The actor told her that he had written the role of Doña Clotilde, a woman who moves into apartment 71 in the neighborhood. She was a single middle-aged woman. Little was known about her life. She argued with the children and felt attracted to Don Ramon, her great unrequited love. The actress loved the character. It would let her show a lighter side and take on new challenges, like making herself look less attractive while sharing scenes with Valdez. Beyond her desire, the final decision was up to Gómez Bolaños. He knew her work in film, radio, and television, and he had no doubt about her ability. It's said that what finally convinced him was the actress's strong and determined character. These were traits the new neighbor needed to have in order to get funnier gags with characters like El Chavo and Don Ramon. At the end of the meeting, Angelines Fernandez was hired. For Chespirito, it was the promise of a steady job and even an opportunity for enjoyment. But how would Doña Clotilde be received? Would the audience like a new character with that temperament? Angelines Fernandez debuted in Chespirito in 1973. From her first appearance as Doña Clotilde, she took the stereotype of the bitter old maid to give more depth to her creation. The new neighbor was tough and intimidating, but she didn't hide a sensitive side either. The chemistry with Valdez reached its peak. The methods to win over Don Ramon, which included cooking for him and giving him gifts, never worked, and that's where the comedy arose. She called him My Roro, which became her signature phrase. The friends had fun filming those scenes since they played anti-heroes who were very different from who they were in real life. Angelines also had quick chemistry with the rest of the cast, starting with Gómez Bolaños. For El Chavo and La Chilindrina, Doña Clotilde was a mystery that gave rise to tons of myths. Even the boy used to think she summoned the devil, and that's why he called her the Witch of 71, a nickname that was also adopted by viewers who called her that on the street. The actress didn't take it as an insult, but rather as a sign of the popularity she had gained because of her performance. Similarly, she remained grounded despite her success and never considered herself superior to others. Just like her colleagues, Angelines was able to play other characters within Chespirito, such as Doña Nachita, the Chompira's neighbor. He himself didn't have as much impact, but it allowed him to show that he could be other characters within that group. The tremendous impact of Doña Clotilde was also evident at every tour or event where the Chespirito staff appeared. There were photos circulating where she appeared with glasses or a cigarette in her lips like a real rock star. And in a way, she and her colleagues were rock stars who went beyond the children's audience to conquer pop culture. Viewers from all over the world tuned into the show to laugh at the jokes and pick up catchphrases to use in their daily lives. Thanks to Doña Clotilde, Angelines enjoyed the worldwide recognition she had been missing, but along with the joys came some sadness as well. For Angelines Fernandez, the Spanish Civil War was over, but on the set of Chespirito, she faced a new battle. The actress tried to focus on her scenes as Doña Clotilde, but she couldn't ignore the tensions within the cast, especially the one that involved Gómez Bolaños and Carlos Villagrán. The actor who immortalized Kiko wanted to become independent and take the character with him, but the leader of the group made it clear to him that he owned the rights. As a result, Villagrán was left out of the show in 1978 and had to change the character's name to Kiko with a K to make his own way. Did a similar situation happen between Gómez Bolaños and María Antonieta de las Nieves, who played La Chilindrina? She had a long legal dispute with the artist, although she was only able to register the character under her name in 1995. On the other hand, Gómez Bolaños became a couple with Florinda Mesa, better known as Doña Florinda, so she gained more influence in the production. Angelines wanted to stay out of the problems until they directly affected her friend Ramón Valdés. He was peaceful and never caused conflicts, but he disapproved of the growing tension within the group. Florinda Mesa accusing him of having addictions was the last straw. Also, the actor always sympathized with Villagrán and his position, so tired of that environment, Valdés resigned. Angelines supported her friend, but she couldn't follow his example. She needed to keep her only source of work and still had to take care of her daughter. Her good relationship with Gómez Bolaños and Mesa also helped her, so she stayed on the show. Despite her decision, Angelines and Valdés remained friends. She especially supported him in 1985, when the actor was diagnosed with stomach cancer due to his dependence on tobacco. He was operated on immediately, but during the surgery they discovered that the disease had already metastasized to his spinal cord. Palliative care was the prelude to his end. He passed away on August 9, 1988. The actress was the sole member of Chespirito's cast to attend his burial at the Mausoleum of the Angel in Mexico City. She was so devastated that it was always said she stayed by the coffin for 2 hours. And just like Doña Clotilde, she kept calling him my Roro. In the following years, Angelines fulfilled her duties in Chespirito and was a present mother for Paloma. However, something had shattered within her, and she was haunted by Valdés's death. But even so, she was never able to quit smoking. She smoked more than usual, and even fell asleep in front of the television with a cigarette in her mouth. When they asked her why she smoked, she said it helped her calm her anxiety. I didn't know that she had also developed cancer, and that's how our story goes back to the beginning. At the beginning of 1994, Angelines knew that his end was near. The treatments were insufficient and the pain tortured her mercilessly. She had the help and company of her inseparable daughter Paloma, and in the midst of this battle, she called the Valdés family with a special request that her remains be buried near those of her great friend. The actor's children always valued the bond between them, so they agreed instantly. After that call, Angelines' health worsened. The fateful day came on March 25, 1994, when she passed away at the age of 69. With the peace of someone who left everything in life, just as she had wished her remains rest next to Don Ramon's. This way they stayed together, just like in Chavo's neighborhood. Angelines Fernandez had passed away, but her importance only continued to grow. In her life, Angelines impacted acting and the world. She was born in Spain, developed her career in Mexico, and was adored all around the world. From a young age, she embodied a warrior spirit that stayed with her throughout her acting career. Like Chespirito, it remains successfully broadcasted worldwide, with new generations discovering Doña Clotilde. However, the character was not immune to the changing times, and today it sparks debates about the representation of female characters and stereotypes. Today, the spinster figure is no longer mocked and is valued, like Angelines. He gave the character an independent and strong personality, going beyond the clichés she could have fallen into. However, many people think that both Doña Clotilde and Doña Florinda portray women as people who need men to feel complete. The controversies persist. And speaking of controversies, the behind the scenes of the show inspired the series Chespirito sin querer queriendo, where Angelines is played by the actress Andrea Nolli. Fans, and even the actors from that cast, have questioned the approach of the story, as they accuse it of romanticizing the real events, and portraying very negatively those actors whom Chespirito's children hold a grudge against. Even so, many agree that the actress who played Doña Clotilde deserved her own biopic. Angelines Fernandez will always be remembered by her audience for her performances and personality. An audience that, even though they knew her as a witch, still holds great affection and respect for her.